Welcome to the show. The Obama administration opposed the regime of Bashar al-Assad, a brutal dictator, war criminal, who has killed thousands of his own people in Syria. And on Thursday, at a press conference in Ankara, Turkey, Secretary of State Rex Tillerson suggested that the current administration, the Trump administration, has no qualms with Bashar al-Assad staying in power. Rex Tillerson said, quote, "The longer-term status of President Assad will be decided by the Syrian people." The same day in New York City, Nikki Haley, our new fearless ambassador to the United Nations, reaffirmed the White House's stance. She said, quote, "Our priority is no longer to sit and focus on getting Assad out." So in terms of policy, the Trump administration is seemingly effectively giving Assad a free pass on his crimes against humanity. This probably makes Russia very happy, who have been fighting in the Syrian civil war alongside Assad, sort of under the pretext of being against ISIS and against extremist groups. To be super clear, going to war with boots on the ground in Syria is not the same as opposing Assad and wanting him out of power. So all of the people that now are speaking up and saying, why is this the view of the Trump administration? It is not that they're suggesting a boots-on-the-ground, full-scale operation against Syria, but it is a questioning of the Trump position, especially in light of the suspected collusion between Trump and Russia and how Russia plays into this. 5 days later, just yesterday, the day before, in the province of Idlib, the Assad regime executed one of the worst chemical bombings against rebel-occupied territory the war has ever seen, a war crime by a number of international treaties. At least 58 civilians were killed, including at least 11 children under the age of 8. Many of you have seen the videos floating around, and they're absolutely brutal. Some reports are much higher, hundreds of others injured, many critical. So the death toll is bound to increase. And later in a nearby town, a hospital treating victims was also bombed, killing 15 people. There are no military installations or personnel anywhere near the sites of the attacks, just civilians in residential areas, period. And there's a local doctor, Firas Jundi, who said, quote, "The people in Idlib are terrified. Everyone here is waiting for death." This has understandably created outrage worldwide, but the Syrian government has already gotten away with so much during this war, with very little in the way of repercussions. And this sort of wink, wink, nod, nod from the Trump administration, I assume, Pat, is only going to further embolden the Assad regime to continue committing atrocities.
There's really no easy way out of this, because if you do commit to ground troops, that's going to cause a lot more civilian deaths and likely further destabilize the Middle East. But if you do nothing, you let Assad to continue and you let Russia have influence on that region.
The bombs dropped by helicopters are believed to have contained sarin gas, which the Syrian government actually vowed to stop using back in 2013 in an agreement with the US and Russia. Sarin is an odorless, colorless nerve agent that can kill you within a minute after inhalation, or just one drop of the liquid on the skin can also kill you. International investigators are going to start examining rockets to find out for sure what they used, but based on the videos that have been seen, that is what is believed to have been used there. The number of deaths is way too high for it to have been chlorine, and the symptoms seem consistent with sarin. Now, yesterday, Sean Spicer, the Donald Trump press secretary, commented on this and blamed, I hope you're sitting down, President Barack Obama. Quote from Sean Spicer: "These heinous actions by the Bashar al-Assad regime are a consequence of the past administration's weakness and irresolution." This is after the Trump White House said that Bashar al-Assad was not one of their priorities. Not that we should necessarily put boots on the ground to fight Assad. That's not what I'm saying. But this is pure, unmitigated hypocrisy by the White House. And let's take it a step further again. Russia. Recall that Russia is aligned with Bashar al-Assad under the pretext of fighting ISIS and defeating extremists, but as a result is more and more complicit in the atrocities of the Assad regime. And now you have the Trump administration increasingly aligned with that. This is bad all around, Pat. And once again, what side is Trump on here?
And it's one thing to blame the situation that you're in on your predecessor. It's another thing to not have a plan and a course of action to make up the ground that was potentially lost by your predecessor.
No doubt about it. And, immediately, whenever we cover a story like this, by the way, based on the YouTube demonetization crisis, you can bet that there is no chance in hell that this video on YouTube is going to have any ads running on it. But it's a serious issue, and my plan is to continue talking about these issues. Immediately, when you start talking about this, people who just want to slam what you're saying will find some overlap in what you say with some other entity, and they'll say you're parroting the X narrative. So depending on your position on this, I've already seen it online. Our friends and co-hosts, hosts of other shows, whatever their opinion is, they are either complicit with the official narrative, or they're conspiracy theorists, or they're ISIS sympathizers. Isn't it possible that you have an opinion that you formed based on researching the story from a number of angles, and there might be overlaps with other people? That doesn't mean you're in the tank for any particular element.
Especially on this issue in particular, because the Syrian government using these chemical weapons is at war with ISIS, and there's so many other powers at play here, including the United States and Russia. So it's very nuanced. It's very tough to come up with something that can satisfy everyone.
There's also the aspect of what should the U.S. involvement be with the Syrian Free Army, which John McCain has talked about, and overlaps with the opinion of some Democrats and doesn't with others. If your response to this is going to be, you're in the tank with X narrative, it's not useful. It's not going to do anything to help us have meaningful conversations about this issue.